Qpid. This is the Robin Hood episode.
We begin with Picard preparing to give a keynote address at an archaeology symposium being held on the Enterprise, and he humble brags about how knowledgeable he is on the subject of the ruins of Tagus III. He wonders that the archaeologists won't see him as enough of an expert, but I don't know why he would be an expert. He's not an archaeologist, he's a starship captain.
So he's working late, and he goes to his room and finds Vash from Captain's Holiday in his room.
He asks how she got there, but decides that making out is more important than getting an answer.
Yeah, his reaction was not what I expected. They've seen weird shit appear in the rooms all the time and immediately interrogate and or call security, but because he's thinking with this time, he takes this one at face value.
They have tea, which is not a euphemism, they actually have tea, and Beverly walks in.
Picard realizes that his personal and work life are going to clash, and there's nothing he can do about it, and things immediately start to blow up in his face.
Well, I'm surprised he didn't mention you.
So am I.
Beverly makes some passive-aggressive comments, but they mostly end up teaming up to make Picard uncomfortable, and it was great.
They go to 10 Forward, where Riker looks like a lion watching a limping antelope drink at a watering hole. And he also talks to Vash.
But she reveals that Picard has warned her about him.
He takes her to the bridge, and she sits in the captain's chair.
And Worf rightly expresses concern about the breach of security, but everybody brushes him off as usual.
And they always wonder why they're getting in so much trouble. Vash talks to Troi as well, and she's pretty ticked off because Picard never mentioned her to anyone and seems to be embarrassed by her.
I'm sorry if you're upset.
And I'm sorry if my being here embarrasses you.
So he goes to sulk in his ready room, but finds Q.
Who tells Picard that he's there to repay him for helping him the last time.
And he also offers to help him with his speech.
Yes, your speech, I read it. It's dull, plodding, pedantic, much like yourself.
By taking him to the ruins in person, which would violate the planet's laws. It was goofy how he offered to take him back in time 2 billion years. I very much doubt anything would be left over from a civilization that old, but I'm no archaeologist.
Picard tells him to leave, which he does for the moment, and Picard warns Riker.
He goes to apologize to Vash and discovers she's planning on heading down to the ruins, and they argue, and of course Q is watching.
Picard really took his time figuring out that Vash had ulterior motives for being there, but he was distracted by the idea of making out with her, so I can kind of understand.
Q decides to use Picard's feelings as leverage against him,
and he taunts Picard about Vash exposing his vulnerabilities. Picard gives his address to the archaeology nerds, and Vash is still there. I would have made her leave the ship, but again, I guess he was distracted.
All of a sudden, the other officers start getting Q props.
And somehow, Picard doesn't see the bright flashes of light when they appear.
And eventually, they're all transported to a Robin Hood setting in Robin Hood attire.
Picard tries to be frustrated, but you can tell he enjoys the idea of being Robin Hood.
Worf's comment was pretty good, too.
I protest. I am not a merry man.
Also, the way he ran at Sir Guy with that sword. Master of combat. Sir Guy is played by Clive Revill, who was the voice of Emperor Palpatine in the original version of The Empire Strikes Back.
There is a great disturbance in the Force.
And he was the voice of Alfred in the original episodes of Batman the Animated Series.
Someone dressed up in a frightening costume, running around scaring people.
Q appears to tell Picard he has to rescue Vash, who is playing the role of Maid Marian.
And if he refuses to play out the scenario, she'll die. I like that they were shooting in real locations for this episode.
I agree. We get a scene with Vash being held prisoner by Sir Guy, and while she is angry, she seems to be taking things pretty well, considering she has no idea what's going on.
She seems on top of stuff, including Picard. No, I can say Sir Guy threatens death if Vash doesn't marry him, so she starts playing him right away to get out of the situation.
Back in the forest, we get some good comedy scenes with Worf breaking Geordi's mandolin and Troi practicing her archery.
Data!
When Geordi was attempting to play the mandolin, he was smiling and acting like he was playing a nice tune, but he was just plucking strings badly. And I wonder if Worf's reaction was intentional, because in the background, Beverly looks like she wasn't expecting it. I can't tell if it was good acting or if it was ad-libbed. And Patrick Stewart is only looking at her. He's not looking at what just happened. So maybe he was pissed off at her for breaking character.
Picard tells Riker he's going to attempt to rescue Vash alone.
Q is thrown for a loop after finding out that Vash has agreed to marry Sergei because that's not what's supposed to happen.
And then we find out that Picard has already infiltrated the castle.
Such a Errol Flynn-esque jump through that window.
He says he has a plan to get her out, but she doesn't trust it, even though he made it all the way to her room without anyone finding him. Seems like he'd have a good chance of getting them out the same way.
And when they're caught arguing, she holds Picard at sword point. Later, she's writing a letter to the crew, but is caught by Q and sentenced to die with Picard.
When they are taken to be executed, Q is talking to Picard.
And the other officers pull a Mortal Kombat to start their rescue attempt.
Data pulls an explosive piece of plastic out of his arm that apparently he didn't need, and tosses it into a fire to distract everyone, enabling Picard to activate Action Hero mode.
What'd you think about the fight?
It was entertaining to see everyone violently murdering people.
Yeah, Geordi straight up killed that dude. I would think that the actors had a really good time with this episode. It looked like they were having fun.
Yeah, I think so. Picard kills Sergei and finds Vash.
Q claims his debt is repaid
because he has shown Picard how love is his biggest weakness, causing him to risk his life and the lives of others.
And he sends everyone except Vash back to the Enterprise.
Picard goes to his ready room, and Vash appears in expedition gear. She says Q proved that Picard does care, and Picard says that just because he doesn't show his feelings to the crew doesn't mean they don't exist. But before they can start making out, Q appears.
She reveals that she's going to team up with Q to check out the galaxy.
Picard doesn't approve, but he gets Q to promise to keep her safe.
Qpid. Now see, that actually makes sense for once, for a Q title. What was the board game one they did? Connect Q? Qs and ladders? Cuties? Hungry Q pose? Overall,
I thought this was a good episode, with good humor, and it was cool to see Vash make a return appearance. I thought the arrival of Q felt a little too disconnected. I preferred the way things were going before he showed up, because once he did, the focus was on overcoming the challenges he presented. I would have preferred some more awkwardness with Vash and the rest of the crew. At least she was still involved with everything. I'm also glad the Robin Hood stuff didn't take up the entire episode, because that seems like something they would have really dragged out in earlier seasons. The interactions between Picard and Vash were great, as usual, and what we did get between her and the rest of the crew was good too, but I thought the second half was less interesting, and that Q was getting a little bit tedious. I gave it a B.
I gave this one an A. I really liked this one. Vash and Picard's chemistry was great in Captain's Holiday. Plus, that was a big character episode for Picard, so I'm glad they brought her back to continue that. I liked the realistic situations with the clashes between Picard's professional and personal life. And this is a Q episode where I didn't mind Q, because he's only the catalyst for the events and takes a back seat to everything as it unfolds. The whole Robin Hood setting, while goofy, was well done, and I like how the focus stayed on Picard and Vash. The other officers get some screen time, but it wasn't too much, and I felt the pacing and balance were very good. Hopefully Vash will show up again, but she won't, except in Deep Space Nine.
What? Like and subscribe.
Oh, do we want to start saying that?
No.
Okay.